I just think that we know better by now. And so tech leaders, we're not just tech consumers, and we have an ability to speak up and make it known that the safety is important and the environment is important. I would like to encourage, all of us as leaders to not just blindly accept what's coming down the pipe, but to say, this is important and you should consider it in your company. And we will make choices accordingly.
If you're ready to unlock momentum, you're in the right place. I'm Aaron Kopel, the Momentum Locksmith, and this is where CIOs come to grow. Welcome back, everyone, for the latest episode of Unlocking Momentum here. I'm your host, Aaron Kopel, and I'm super excited to have Heather Darring with us today. So Heather, who I've gotten a chance to know a little bit more over the last few months and maybe a year, I guess. How has it been? Maybe like 6 months or so since you stepped into the role of president of the TechPoint Indiana CIO Network. I enjoy going to those events and things, but Heather's stepped into that president role, and she's also the chief information officer of Kappa Alpha Theta, which is, she was sharing with me, has 240,000 members, which is a lot. I don't know of any organization I can think of that has more people than that off the top of my head. So that's pretty awesome, being in a leadership role for a company of that size or organization of that size. So Heather, welcome to the show. Excited to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Well, would love to know a bit about your background and sort of, what are those, what's that path that sort of led you to be in these couple of roles you have? A lot of cool things going on. So what sort of led you to now?
If you would have asked me in high school, like what I wanted to be, technology would not have made the top 5. I really didn't know, honestly, but I certainly didn't think about starting a career in IT. So when I went to school, I was thinking sciences. I was thinking, neurology at one point, so psychology, that kind of thing. But I got a little bit lost in college and I didn't know what I wanted. So I ended up with a degree in art because that was my minor. And I was like, I need to graduate and I got to figure this out later. So I knew I needed to get a master's degree, and I had a close friend suggest that I do the CICS program at Ball State. That's where I grew up, was Muncie, Indiana. So I did that program and it was really great. I learned so much and I really fell in love with IT. And so then we'll skip some parts. I ended up working for Kappa Alpha Theta, and I really grew up here. I tell people this is where I started my career in help desk and learned so many things. I was really a jack of all trades, networking, database, kicking printers and copiers, like everything in between. And lo and behold, I had the opportunity to rise in the ranks and now I get to run it, and it's great. I love being in a leadership position and being able to work with technology and solve problems every day. I love solving problems. That's my thing. So it's been great. And then as far as getting involved in the CIO network, that was just a huge blessing, really. I got an opportunity to get to know Jeff Tunn and Dennis Trinkle in a program that they put on through Ball State at the time, a CIO, CTO certification program. I really got to get to know those two really well. And they just pulled me into the ecosystem. And then I was on a committee, and then I was on an advisory, and now I'm the president. And so this has been really great. I love the community. I have gotten to know so many brilliant people, and I'm a better leader because of it. And I just love the way that, we share information and share experiences. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really unique community. It's a treasure to have this.
It certainly is a great community. I mean, you get a lot of people from a lot of different industries, but all, from an IT leadership perspective, sharing a lot of those challenges and stories, right? And I think it helps a lot for people to not think that they're alone in some of these challenges, and it's not just happening to them, that kind of stuff. They can sort of share some of those issues and hopefully feel a bit better about it's not just me. It's, other people are experiencing this too. I can get through it, That's,
Absolutely.
Some of what we try to do here as well, share some of those stories. And I think there's a great community here. And then there, in other cities, there's similar kind of communities. I think this one's kind of special in terms of just the different industries and different perspectives that sort of come together, and you guys meet often. So it's really great. There's breakfast meetings, there's dinner meetings, there's multi-group events with other technologists as well. So it's pretty cool. And I love hearing about how you grew up in that same organization, starting at help desk. Like I've seen that from several people where that's where they started, and you really learn a lot about how the company really works when you're dealing with help desk issues, right? You can help them work through it, and like you said, from a problem solving perspective, I'm sure it can make you feel good, but also helps them. And then you understand how the organization works. Then as you climb the ranks, you really understand how things really work around there. So that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, with that, as you think back on your career, I mean, you've had some pretty interesting experiences in different organizations and met some really interesting people. Like you said, Jeff Tunn, Dennis Trinkle along the way. But what advice might you give your past self if you sort of, could go back in time and talk to that high schooler or college girl? What kind of advice might you give her?
I actually have a college student who is very similar to me and just has struggled with trying to figure out like what to be when she grows up. And I think what I would tell her and what I would tell my past self is there isn't one magical golden path that you have to find. And I don't know where that comes from, but like we all just kind of have this sense that I have to find my one true calling. It's a specific path. And if I miss it, I'm doomed. And it's so much pressure. It's so much pressure, especially on a young person. You don't have an idea of like all the options. We just see a very limited set of options. So it's impossible to really, really know. But what I would tell myself is that instead of trying to find that one golden path, just find what you're good at and what you enjoy. And then doors tend to open. And you don't need to see all the doors. You just need to see the next door. And you walk through that door. And then another path will open. And I think it just takes a lot of that pressure off. I mean, not saying that you don't have to work hard and, learn things and gain skills. Like those are all important too, but just, it doesn't have to be this cosmic ball of confusion about, what the next step is.
Yeah. Trying to find the perfect answer when you're, 15, 16, 17 years old, when you don't really know what the options are. That's a tough situation, a lot of pressure to put on yourself. So that's really good advice. And as you talk about finding something you're good at and that you really enjoy, I mean, it's really passion, right? And so if you find something you're passionate about, that shows. People like that, and they'll help you open those doors, I think, right? So as you talk to people and they understand what your passion is, they're usually willing to help you, do something with that, because that's meaningful, right? Finding something you're passionate about.
Yep. And and they can be applied in different industries. If something doesn't work out in one direction, if you understand what your talents and skills are, they can be applied somewhere else. And like for me, it was unexpected to be in the IT industry, but being a problem solver has served me well in this industry. But if I was in another one, I'd be okay too.
Yeah, that problem solving, I mean, it's really, there's a home for it in IT, of course, but that problem solving skill set is relevant to a lot of different areas, right? Marketing, HR, finance, all those kind of things. I mean, you could be doing a lot of that in different areas. And it's interesting because I find a lot of people that are in music and arts that for some reason gravitate towards IT. That creative problem solving kind of stuff, I guess, is just sort of like second nature to artists. So we're going to shift gears a little bit into sharing some of that experience and expertise with the rest of the audience here. So first, we'd like to jump into, the name of the podcast is Unlocking Momentum. So really curious about that for you. So an example of, when you've had an opportunity to jump in and try to do that, unlock momentum where, things were stuck or maybe not going the right direction. And how did you get in there and sort of solve that problem, unlocking momentum? So kind of curious to hear that story from you.
So early in my tenure as CIO, I would say a communication breakdown with another department. And they were frustrated with us and we were frustrated with them. People were offended. We leave meetings and I'm scratching my head like, what happened? What just happened? I don't understand what happened. And so we ended up bringing in a third party who had experience both in tech and in fundraising. And they were able to kind of help us come to the realization that we were literally using the same words and meaning different things. So once we figured out like, oh, this is what you mean. Okay, that makes sense. This is what we mean. And they're like, okay, yes, that makes sense. And what really tipped the balance was, it was like a light bulb. When we were using the phrase best practices, we were talking about the technological tool, but they heard us say, you don't know how to do your job. You're not using best practices, and we're going to tell you how to do your job. Who wouldn't be offended?
So they came across to them as you're using practices that are not the best. You don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was like, okay, yes, this is the wrong approach. And so we were able to do a 180, switch up the tone, adjust how we were communicating. And really the message to the team was like, look, we need to affirm that these folks know what they're doing and that they're good at their jobs. And we don't know, we're not the experts in fundraising. And so we need to make sure that we acknowledge that and affirm that with this team. And that really turned it around because now not only are we speaking the same language, but now we also have respect. And so that changed the relationship. And now there's trust. And so the next time we said, hey, if you change the way that you are tracking these appeals, because it will reduce your manual steps, it will free you up to do more valuable things, and it will provide you with better and more insightful data, because that's what their goals are. And they trusted us to partner with them to execute on this change. And then later, because we've mended the relationship, our teams were able to work together on a new initiative that ended up bringing in like over $1 million and won an award. So we went from offending each other and just being annoyed to being able to partner well together. That really brought amazing results to the organization.
That's a nice big win to be able to point to and say, hey, we really turned this around. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's great.
It's amazing how foundational trust is, right? We often kind of take for granted that we assume like, hey, we're in the same company. We must be, going for the same thing. We must be, aligned, but, sometimes we're not, right? And it just generates a feeling of mistrust at least. And so it sounds like you guys were able to mend that. And, it's amazing how often, as we think about technology and IT, it just comes down to people and trust and, organizational change management kind of things, like helping people work through, a personal change to their process or approach. Like, especially when we're dealing with IT and systems, we give them some new tool or some new process, and it's just not what they're used to. And for a lot of us in technology, we're so used to switching tools and doing different things all the time. And other people, like you said, in fundraising, like they just probably have the blinders on. They're just trying to do the best fundraising they can. They're not worried about, experimenting with new tools and other approaches and that kind of stuff. They just want to get their job done, right? And so like switching that up on them can be really a lot more traumatic than we think it is. So, well, it's a really great example of really helping people work through and building that trust with the business. That's one of the things we've heard a lot on this show is really from CIOs. It's less about technology and much more about people and relationships, building trust and working through change. And so, speaking of change, one other topic that I know we want to touch on here about that hot topic or thing that's going on out there in the world. There's this thing called AI I heard of somewhere, and that's going on, and that everyone's talking about all the time, and we've gotten into it quite a bit as well. But as you think about that, what are you seeing out there in the world that might concern you about what's happening and where we're going with AI right now?
I've been thinking a lot about that Jurassic Park quote, Dr. Malcolm. And he says, your scientists have been so focused on whether or not they could, they didn't stop to ask whether they should. It's amazing, like how quickly technology is changing. It's really fascinating to watch. And I'm worried that people are being trampled underneath, this high-speed train. If you look at history, whenever there's innovation and advancement, there's risk. I've been asking myself, what is my responsibility as a tech leader to speak up and expect that new technology be developed ethically and that we consider not just a return on investment in our businesses, but the return on investment in our society? Like, what kind of communities do we want to live in? What kind of society do we want to live in? I have a young adult child who grew up in the smartphone age, throw COVID in the middle of it. And, I really tried to limit technology in my home. And despite my best efforts, I had a front row seat to the negative effect of phones and social media on the mental health of a teenager. It's upsetting. So when we think about new technology, like there should be a responsibility to, the social contract to one another. We can undress someone with a click of a button. Young people are being coached on violent things by AI bots. Are we going to wait until something happens that we can't take back before we do something again. And, and thinking of the data centers as well, we know already that they waste water. They cause air pollution, light pollution, sound pollution. We already tend to put them in communities that are already negatively affected by industrial pollution and have health problems already. I just think that we know better by now. And so tech leaders, we're not just tech consumers, and we have an ability to speak up and make it known that the safety is important and the environment is important. So I would like to encourage, all of us as leaders to not just blindly accept what's coming down the pipe, but to say, this is important and you should consider it in your company, and we will make choices accordingly.
Yeah, to your point, the social aspects of it, especially, technologists and technology leaders are probably the first ones to understand and recognize what's possible, right? And then also the negative impacts that might come with it, right? So we're oftentimes looking at the opportunities, the positive things, and all the proactive things we can do to help ourselves, help our business, help our kids, things like that. But you're right. I mean, it's the downside of that we often don't pay attention to early enough. And so understanding the impacts of that and bringing those to light to help make choices. And I know there was something in the last month or so that happened with Facebook. I know there's a big lawsuit that I think finally got resolved in the last few weeks or month, where they were found liable for some things that were happening that they, that now people are putting safeguards in place to try to prevent, certain activities of, really impacting kids and influencing them in the wrong direction with some of these AI tools that are really just sort of out there that, they're using one-on-one and no one else is paying attention to, that they need to moderate a bit more. And so that is interesting, like the negative social impacts of some of these things that, we're advancing so fast with all kinds of cool stuff, but there are downsides that we need to pay attention to. As we think about that and, going forward, there's a lot of opportunities. Like you said, it's getting faster and faster every day. There's more and more things popping up. It is really hard to pay attention to everything at once, but hopefully we can get our arms around that a bit better. So, and speaking of that, so, thinking about navigating things inside a large organization, like you said, you had 240,000 members. I can't even comprehend that. That's huge, right? It's gigantic. But as you think about trying to manage things in an organization that's serving that many people, what are some of the challenges you're seeing right now?
One of the things that is a challenge is we all recognize how important project management and change management are, but we don't yet have a cohesive, a way that we are doing it across all of our departments. Everybody's kind of doing it a little differently. And so we're just finding that things are being missed, even though we meet and we have conversations. We're like, hey, what's coming? Oh, this is coming. We're still missing things. So I've been thinking a lot about how we can solve that problem and the importance of having a cohesive, this is how we do projects and this is how we do change management. And these are the expectations. And we all know them and we all agree. And this is just how we operate. That's my next project. That's what we're working toward to solve. We talk all the time about not working in silos, but it's just so hard to stay out of them. You just keep falling back into them. So really bringing to light the changes that are coming, and not just to the leadership team, because I think you can try to make sure that when you have a new initiative coming and you say, oh, I'm pretty sure this affects this person, or department, and then you get into it and you're like, oh, we should have talked to them too. And now you have to kind of backtrack. So being able to bring that change to everyone, this is coming, kind of like a town hall, if you have anything to say about this, speak now or forever hold your peace. So those are the types of things that we're thinking about. Just being able to see the big picture across the organization and execute it well.
From a technology perspective and IT leadership, some of the biggest challenges and things we need to really tackle have almost nothing to do with the technology itself, right?
It's true.
It's more about, personalities and trust and change management, to your point, really helping everyone understand what's going on, not just letting them know, but trying to get them more engaged so that they're paying attention and realizing what it could mean to them and how they need to participate or, at least pay attention to what's going on so that they understand, the impacts of it and what they need to do differently. So it can be a real challenge. To your point, when you've got a broad organization, people just tend to focus on their thing, like put the blinders on and try to get my day job done. And they got to really start thinking bigger and broader across the organization about how those things will impact themselves and others around them. So that's a big challenge. I'm not sure if there's a perfect solution for it, but it sounds like you guys are on a good path to try to figure it out. So that's great. Well, speaking of that, figuring things out for the future, one of the last questions we get to here in terms of topics is, what's the future look like? So from a CIO perspective, what's something that you think is really important for CIOs to really pay attention to in the future? And I used to describe the future in terms of, hey, 5 or 10 years out, but man, things are moving so fast. It's more like, hey, what should we worry about 6 months from now or 12 months from now is like, as far as we can maybe think out in the future. But yeah, kind of curious for your thoughts there. What's the most important things CIOs should pay attention to going forward here?
Well, I think that more than the technology, because technology and innovation, it comes and goes. It's, it's always changing. It's always evolving, but the job is the same. It's important for CIOs to focus on the mission and vision of the organization. What is the purpose? Why are we here? What are our goals? What's the strategy? Because, and I think even, going back to poor AI, we've been picking on AI. I'm sorry. I'm not anti-AI. I just want to say that I use it, and we're trying to figure out how best to use it here too. But a lot of the messaging around AI is, if you're not already using it, you're behind. And if you don't use it soon, you will perish. And I don't like high pressure sales. And that's what it feels like to me. And I'm not going to be bullied into running out here and getting an AI tool just to say that I am. And because it goes against the core tenet of technologists, which is we don't use technology for technology's sake. It's still about the strategy. And if the tool helps us achieve the strategy, then that's magical. And that's what we want. And so whatever comes down the pipe, AI, agentic AI, whatever's next, figure out how it aligns with the strategy first and how it's going to help you achieve your goals. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I really think about technology as the enabler, not the end all be all, right? A lot of change and transformation we've seen over the last, 20, 30 years of cycles like the, internet boom, mobile boom, agile, and now into AI, cloud, but all those kind of things. It's all, it's all enabling technologies, but it's not the end all be all. And so it really is, to your point, coming back to what's our purpose, our mission, our strategy, what are we trying to accomplish here? And then what are the technology things that can help us do that versus just implementing technology and trying to, back that into something. So yeah, really good point. See, it's such a hot topic. Everyone's, talking about it and they want to jump on the bandwagon to a certain degree, but to your point, being thoughtful about how to do that and what's the right time and right level to jump into it probably is something to be really thoughtful about. So that's great. Well, Heather, it's been great having you on the show. What we usually like to do at the end of the show here is just a couple rapid fire questions. So first one is, what are you passionate about outside of work?
Well, I consider myself an analog creator. And that means I knit and I crochet. I'm actually trained in oil painting, but that's difficult to do at home, unless you have a studio. And with, kids underfoot, I switched to watercolor painting. So I do watercolors. I kind of collect hobbies, honestly. I will do anything with my hands. I've dabbled in embroidery and I love making crafts for my kids. So that's a lot of fun for me. And I once painted 30 22-inch boxes like Minecraft blocks for my son's birthday.
That's nice. I'm sure it's like just a mental break from all the just, day-to-day technology stuff we all deal with, right? Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a good passion outside of work, just getting, do some stuff with your hands, be creative. So that's awesome. Well, our second rapid fire question, if there's anyone living or past that you'd like to sit down and have a coffee with and just, pick their brain a little bit, get to know them, that kind of stuff, who would it be for you?
I would love to sit down with Michelle Obama. I just think she's brilliant and wise, and she endured, regardless of, where you sit politically, she endured a lot of negative attention and just horrible things said about her. And I think she handled it really well, better than I could have. And I just admire that. And I think it's been really fascinating to watch her decide when to come back into the public eye and use her voice on her terms and figure out what's next after being in such a visible position as a first lady. I think sitting down and just chatting with her over coffee would just be really insightful and, maybe also have some tea.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that could be a good conversation. Lots of interesting insights, I'm sure, from, like you said, being in the spotlight and then, what do you do after that, right? So, I'm sure pretty interesting. So that's great. All right, and last rapid fire question, more about legacy and, how do you want to be remembered? What, leaving your mark, that kind of thing. And so we usually frame this as, what do you want written on your tombstone? So kind of curious, what would that be for you?
I really want to be remembered for just making things better and for having a positive influence on the people I'm privileged to be in their lives, and do life with. I think, whether it's just a singular interaction, if I could make somebody laugh or give someone good advice or help them in their career, get to the next level, that's the kind of stuff that, makes me happy. And, I also want to be a voice for people, maybe who don't have one themselves, and to be able to speak up for the marginalized. And, as I get more influence, I really want to use it for the benefit of my community.
Yeah, that's great. And, a lot of that's feeling good vibes, right? And so be positive and that you've helped people. So that sounds really inspiring. So thanks for that. Well, Heather, it's great to get to know a bit more about you as well. These 3 rapid fire questions usually really interesting and give just, some really quick insights into people, who they really are beyond just the, the typical work kind of things that we talk about in technology and, leading organizations. And I know as, CIOs, it's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. So it's nice to understand a bit more, behind the scenes, what goes on and what do you think about. So appreciate that. As we wrap the show up, I know people are going to find a lot of interesting pieces in here for them to take some knowledge away and some thoughts and hopefully spur them to some action. And I know they're probably going to want to reach out to you and maybe have a coffee. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find. I have a pretty unique last name. So just look me up, send me a message.
That's great. So Heather Darring, and find you on LinkedIn. We'll put a link to your LinkedIn page in the show notes here as well. So it'll be easy to find. But I know as the president of the CIO Network here in Indiana, and you're pretty accessible. People reach out to you all the time, I'm sure, asking about what's going on with that group, how do I engage with it, that kind of stuff. And so if they want to plug into the CIO Network, the Indiana CIO Network through TechPoint, what's the best way for them to find info on that?
The TechPoint website, we'll put the link in the show notes. I've always wanted to say that. So.
There you go. That's always a fun thing to say. TechPoint.org. There you go. And TechPoint, there's a new president overall, so president CEO of TechPoint, Eric Christopher. So have you had a chance to chat much with him yet?
Yeah, we had an opportunity at the last breakfast. We chatted for a little bit. Excited to have him on board. It's been great.
So kind of a well-known tech entrepreneur here in Indiana, done some great things, and then bringing that energy and excitement to the TechPoint overall organization. And I'm sure you guys will be working together a bit to help the IT leadership and technology really, align to the vision and help understand, how it can all work together. So, well, Heather, it's been so great having you on the show, and really appreciate you coming on, sharing some thoughts, and also helping us get to know you better. So that's really exciting to know that you're out there and people can reach out and seek out opportunities to learn from you and also maybe partner and collaborate. So thanks so much for being on the show, Heather. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. Enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks for tuning in to Unlocking Momentum. If today's conversation sparked ideas or gave you a new way to think about leadership, check out our past episodes and resources. Don't forget to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to connect with me, Aaron Kopel, the Momentum Locksmith, you'll find the link in the show notes.